Hey everyone, Red here, and today's rank 1 mindset killer is Legion. For those of you who watched the rank 1 spirit mindset, the letters that spell Legion were placed throughout the video. If you're wondering where every letter was placed, feel free to go back to the spirit video as the timestamps for every letter have now been posted. But without further ado, let's get into today's build, which I feel is one of the strongest builds for Legion currently. First is barbecue and chili. When hooking a survivor, see the auras of every other survivor who is 40 meters away from a hook, assuming of course they're not in the locker. Next is discordance, which will alert me when two survivors are on the same generator and will keep alerting me every 12 seconds. Feel free to take this perk at any level, as the only thing that changes is how frequently it will remind you. Most players actually tend to keep this perk at rank 1. Our third perk is Hex Ruin, which is going to regress any gens that survivors aren't working on by 200% of the regression value. This works well as Legion can be a very active killer, and it will synergize with Discordance as we will be pushing survivors away from doubling on gens. And last but not least is Thanaphobia, which gives a stacking 4% penalty to gen and healing speeds per injured survivor. This entices survivors to stay healthy, and the more time spent on healing, the less time they're spending on them gens. As far as add-ons go, I prefer to take the Defaced Smiley Pin, which inflicts mangled on survivors I hit who have killer's protection on them, and the Stolen Sketchbook for increased Feral Frenzy duration. And that's it. Let's go ahead and get into today's video. Starting the game off right away with Discordance going off is one of the main reasons why I bring it on Legion. Not only does it synchronize well with this power, but also allows us to keep gens from popping right away by keeping survivors from doubling up on them. Since Legion is a very simplistic killer, we're going to need all the time we can get, and this time is needed for removing pallets and keeping survivors injured. Legion needs to get good value from his early game in order to ensure the late game. This is where Frenzy comes handy, as it can generate a ton of pressure early game by speeding himself up, and when he hits a survivor who's not inflicted by deep wounds already, you're showing the other survivors who are nearby with their heartbeat. This can actually be really great when it comes down for information, and can allow you to potentially injure every survivor within a short amount of time. With Ruin gone so early, I will have to be careful in the amount of time I spend in any given chase. We want survivors to heal overall, and Thanaphobia is going to help with that by giving them a negative to gen speed if they choose to stay injured, along with being a one hit down in future chases. When it comes to pallet loops with Legion, it's about as simple as it comes. Feel free to try for a few mind games, but most of the time, it's better just to get them out of the way and create dead zones for future chases. Normally this would be a great time to break chase, especially since Steve is heading to the main building, which can have some brutal loops, but since my power is now up, I can guarantee myself a free hit and to get some information afterwards. One of the Claudettes managed to actually get healed here, and I get the pleasure of going for a re-injure, but since the currently injured Claudette stays within easy range, I make sure to tag her to reset my timer for Frenzy, and to make her spend a bit more time mending. I can now focus my time on whichever survivor seems to be more out of position, which might have actually been the other Claudette since she ran away from Shaq, but with two other survivors having deep wounds, I have a little bit of time to try and get it down here, along with the potential of removing the God Pallet, which is a win in my book since the generator will still be up. I noticed Discordance going off here, and I am choosing to ignore it. Normally this would be a great time to break chase, especially once I manage to get God Pallet out of the way, but one thing to keep in mind of it is actually gen importance. The gen inside the main building tends to be safeguarded pretty well with nice pallet loops, and since I've already mentioned how strong that building can actually be, I actually opt out to even go for it and let it go in general. Certain maps have areas like this where it's pretty much always a time sink, and you have to already have quite a lot of pressure going in before you can waste time chasing a survivor in that area. Of course, with seeing all three survivors in main building, I kinda have no choice but to head in that direction. The survivors there are going to finish up the generator, but I predict that they're also going to attempt to try and heal up as well. And that's one thing I want to prevent if at all possible. Losing a generator that's in a bad spot early isn't a horrible thing, as it's better to have it done now and not one of the last gens remaining to give survivors a safe house for their last gen. Now when it comes to killing them pesky Claudettes, make sure to assert dominance at least once. Thanaphobia is doing a lot of slowdown work on its own this game, with this group of survivors trying to stay healthy. Personally, I prefer survivors who don't heal, as it makes for quicker downs most of the time. But those games aren't exactly a ton of fun to watch, as there's basically no reason to use Legion's power other than information. I personally would love to see some future reworks for Legion, especially since I enjoy the skins quite a bit. There are a few different ways to play this loop here, and typically it's to go up halfway one side before backpedaling to the other side to catch survivors off guard. If this doesn't work, try the exact opposite by turning your back to survivors and moonwalking to them. Survivors have limited options in loops, and one of them is to just leave the loop if they feel they're gonna misplay it, and a survivor out in the open is a free hit. I know I preach it all the time, I'm going to continue to do so. Make sure to get extra value after downing a survivor, and in this case it's going to be for a quick hit on the Claudette here to keep up some pressure and to keep survivors injured. Even if the slug gets picked up, you typically gain advantages elsewhere or advantages that will pay off later down the line. Of course, you should try not to lose your slug if possible, but this is just a good habit to get into, and you'll see payoffs in your game almost instantly once you begin this technique. In hindsight, it would have been better to tag Claudette there in order to have enough frenzy charge to be able to tag the Jake. After realizing this mistake though, I changed my focus back to Steve since he seems most out of position, and I know I can secure a quicker takedown than if I would have went for Jake in general. Steve opts to sit on the pallet instead of playing around it, and most likely due to what happened last time, which is fine overall as it's not going to change his fate because I already gained enough distance due to the mistake he just made. If you're wondering how he misplayed there, it was actually the slight hesitation just after stunning me, thinking I was going to break the pallet. The 1 second he spent during that was actually what gave me enough time overall to catch him. During this time, I'm looking around for crows or for the generator's pumps to be moving, signifying survivor presence. I'm also studying the layouts and where my best 3-gen strat may be, if I need to fall back onto that plan. A 3-gen is simply 3 generators that are close together. It tends to be a killer's last chance at winning the game. Thinking ahead like this can save games that might have gotten off on the wrong foot, or when maybe you've made 1 or 2 main mistakes as a killer. Survivor mains should also take note of this, as you don't want to 3-gen yourself in because it gives an upper hand to the killer. After a moment of running around, I stumbled upon Jake, and since almost all the survivors are pretty much healed up and now discordance is also going off, it is a perfect time to get that frenzy going and to look for as many hits as possible. Unlike with some of the other rank 1 mindsets, there's not really a ton to go through with Legion's power. There's no crazy way of playing it or nice little tips and tricks that you can do to make it better. It's pretty straightforward. You go faster, vault faster, and ricochet off of survivors till everyone in the area is injured before focusing one down out of frenzy. There are a few techs you can do with a frenzy, but they're extremely situational and rely on the survivor being on the same wavelength. Being blinded while in frenzy will not only kick you out of frenzy, but will negate your stun effect as well. This little note can be nifty, but is rarely going to be a possibility. There's also no frenzy stun if you were hit with a pallet, and this is why you may see some legions run Spirit Fury and Enduring. I know this was a little off topic, but I felt like I needed to go ahead and mention it. I decided to eat the DS mostly to show that I didn't care about the DS and that he was going to meet the Reaper this game anyways. Think of it as just another way to assert some dominance. Even though most killers like Legion have a terror radius, it's still not a bad idea to try and hide yourself with line of sight blockers to try and catch off some survivors, kinda like this Claudette. Gotta give props to behavior this patch. I now see Dead Hard almost every game and they seem to work much better now. So much so that there have been times where I've seen my blade completely go through the survivor before they dash forward. Now that a game is getting going, I need to focus on removing a player from the game, and since I've hooked every other survivor besides Jake, they're going to be my current focus. If Jake becomes an easy target or makes a big misplay, I definitely will down him, and if there's a hook nearby, I will hook him right away. But the other survivors are the priority right now. You really only want to be dealing with 3 or less survivors when at the last 1 or 2 gens. When in frenzy, you basically gallop over vaults. While this is cool, it leaves you open to a window tag, so make sure to be on the lookout for them just in case. Keep in mind when coming out of your power, you can still buy and block survivors. This is great for cutting off pallet loops a survivor may be heading to, and hurting survivors in a different direction can be a great way to end a chase as well. With Ruin down, make sure to kick generators to start the regression process, especially if you're chasing a survivor away from that area. It's a simple thing that most killers tend to ignore. There are scratch marks on the tree in front of Claudette, meaning another survivor is going for the save. This tells me only one survivor can be on a generator at the current moment. It also gives me another chase to go to if I don't want to follow the Claudette. But since she makes the mistake of not going for that pallet, she should be quite a quick down. With wide objects like this in your way, be careful not to give survivor enough distance to make it to an actual loop. Now, once I hook this Claudette, both of the Claudes will actually be on death hook, and this is something to keep in mind because like I said before, I'm aiming to remove a player from the game any way I can currently. Jake's movement and crouching means he's trying to hide behind that wall, also means he's not gaining distance right now, and is a much easier target, at least for a frenzy hit. Survivors react one of two ways when getting hit by Legion's frenzy strikes. One is to run away and get distance before attempting to mend. The second thing survivors do is actually start mending right away. And if you see a survivor doing this and have no better or no easier targets in the area, make sure to punish this by attempting to go for a down, especially when the survivor is at a weak loop like this. This is one of the moments that has a few different plays that can be made. While I opt to go for a quick hook here, it could also be very fruitful to leave him slugged in an attempt to catch off the Claudette, who right now is going for the save, and which could result in one of the two Claudettes being killed off. I opted for the safe route of hooking Jake due to potential DS, and I didn't see myself getting to the other Claudette in time. Hooking Jake near that gem will also allow me to predict which gen the survivors are going to work on after they save Jake. Whimpers of pain bring joy to my ears as the Claudettes didn't stray too far from the hook. This is the perfect time to look for a slug on both Claudettes. Not only can I remove both of them from the game, but also can force the survivors to come to this area in hopes to save one of them from death. Sometimes just the tip is all you really need. This is a moment where yes, the survivors might finish the second to last gen, but removing two players from the game is going to make finishing the last generator almost impossible. And this is what we are looking for at this stage in the game, removing all real pressure from us while raising the pressure for the survivors. And just like I thought, the Steve came off the gen in an attempt to save Claudette. Even if he manages to save her, I will be able to focus him down quickly and pick up her trail. Steve not looking behind him makes for an easy down as I think ahead. I hear the Claudette behind me and know she's going to attempt for a flashlight save, which is perfect as it becomes an easy turnaround for me. Jake felt left out and decided to swing in the area as well. Of course I noticed him and plan on giving him a great opportunity to get real personal with my knife. This area here is also a trap for most survivors as it is a pretty subpar loop that relies really heavy on stunning the killer with the pallet in order to make any real distance. And with our last survivor down and no unbreakables, this is a GG. And that's it for today's video. I hope you all found it entertaining and helpful for your Legion games. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and a subscribe if you aren't already. You can follow me on Twitter and Twitch to keep up with all my content and my postings. Also, feel free to hop into the Discord where you can post some memes, play games, and meet some new people from the community. If you're a Legion main and have tips for newer players interested in Legion, let the community know in the comment section below. Unlike last time, there isn't anything hidden in this video for the next rank 1 mindset killer. Though, I won't confirm it, I have been having a ton of fun with the new killer Blight, and it's very possible he gets a super quick rank 1 video himself. I hope you slice and dice some survivors in your future games, and as always, I'm Red, and I'm signing off.